quotients method is very, very similar. We even set it up to look the same. 378 divided by 9, and then we put a divider line in here to separate the two areas that we're going to be doing some math work in. The difference between the traditional and the partial quotients, I'm going to put PQ, partial quotients method. The difference between these two methods is how we instruct the student to question themselves in the problem. So over here, the questioning was, how many times does 9 go into each of these digits? In the second problem, we're asking them to think in terms of how many groups of 9 could I fit into 378? And we're going to ask them, instead of trying to get an exact answer right away, we're asking them to make an educated guess. How many groups of 9 do they think they might be able to fit into 378? So let's pretend that we're a student. We're asking ourselves this question. We say, how many times, or how many groups of 9 can I make out of 378 objects? Well, let's guess, I don't know, maybe 20. Let's see. So over here on the right side of the line, we're going to have our scratch work. Let's imagine we had 20 groups of 9. Well, if I want to know how many objects that is, 20 groups of 9, I'd multiply 20 times 9. That's 180 objects. Well, it's not quite the 378, but I certainly can make at least 20 groups of 9. So let's find out how many are left over. So we're trying to take 378 objects and make them into groups of 9. I've now created 20 of them. So let's see how many objects are left. We've grouped 180 objects. We're going to subtract. Well, we do our little subtraction borrowing deal here. And we find out that we have 198 objects left over to break into groups of 9, because that's what we're always asking. How many groups of 9 can we make? Well, I certainly can fit another 20 groups in there, right? Because we just found out 180 objects can be made into 20 groups of 9. So let's make note of that. Another 20 groups of 9 would give me another 180 objects. So I have 180 grouped into 20, 180 grouped into 20, and now we have to figure out how many are left over. How many objects haven't been grouped yet? Well, if we subtract, we'll find that we have 18 left over. So if I'm a student asking, how many groups of 9 can I make out of the leftover 18 objects? Oh, well, I know that, 2, right? Because if I had 2 groups of 9, that would be exactly 18, which I now know if I take away those 18 objects, I have nothing left. I've grouped all the objects. I grouped the 180 objects into 20 groups of 9, another 180 objects into another 20 groups of 9, and then the last 18 into 2 groups of 9. So here are my groups, 20 groups, 20 groups, 2 groups. So how many groups of 9 did we make? 20 plus 20 is 40. Plus 2 is 42. 42 groups of 9. So I can put that number up here, 42 groups of 9. Well, look at that. We got the same answer. We had the traditional method. We had the partial quotients method. Both of them give us the correct answer. Thank goodness, because otherwise we'd have a problem. So what is the value of this new method? Primarily, again, just like we talked about with the partial products method or with the area model for multiplication, the value of the partial quotients method is that it allows us to answer questions about why we use the procedure that we're using. It's always easier for a student to remember a procedure if it makes sense. So if I'm explaining that what we're trying to do is take a number of objects and break it into equal groups, in this case, equal groups of 9, then they're going to connect with that method a little bit more easily than if I just say, okay, divide it into that digit. Did it work? Yes, okay. Multiply, bring down, or subtract, bring down. Those phrases are very abstract to a new learner. We may be able to help them make more sense of that method after they've looked at the partial quotients procedure or the partial quotients algorithm. But we should make sure to order that process of learning correctly. Start with the one that makes the most sense first, the partial quotients method, and move to the traditional method afterwards, if that's going to be part of their learning process, their end goal. Hopefully that clears up for you. If you were looking at the material in the book and thinking, oh my goodness, I'm getting a headache just looking at these, I hope that this, seeing it done out in front of you has been helpful. Enjoy the rest of the book.